Oh, yes. So now, when you take all the omics technologies, be it genomics, transcriptomics, and metabolomics, these are tools that people use every day to improve crops. Because you need to know, like we talked about meat earlier on, you need to know the ultimate amount of protein you want in your meat, right? And that ultimate amount is going to be determined by all these things. So by manipulating, say, how your cow looks at a genetic level, it means that you're going to manipulate the subsequent protein, the amount that's going to be produced. There's something can be said about maize. If you want to have a plant that produces more than one cob, you're going to manipulate it at a genomic stage. There are other cultivars that are known to have more than one cob, and if you change the gene expression or the gene complement or the total number of genes in a particular plant, it simply means that the expression is also going to be different. There's going to be more. When in the face of climate change, you may want to consider using genes that protects the plant from these mid-season droughts, these periodic droughts that you get within the growing season. I'm assuming that we are looking at farmers who are growing crop for subsistence, and their crop is predominantly rain-fed, meaning they have no irrigation whatsoever, like most in the Eastern Cape. So a cultivar or a variety of maize that can actually, when the plant is having no water, it can actually dry, but whenever the water comes up, it gets up again. Then you actually have more food security compared to a person who just have a heavy yielder that's going to be affected by these mid-season droughts. Now, a plant like that, you may want to go to that desert, because we have plants in the desert that receive rain once every it's maybe 2 or 3 years, depending on it's very sporadic on the frequency, and but the moment they receive water, within 24 hours they flower and produce seeds, and they die again. So that alone shows you that there is a gene that, upon reception of water, it's expressed, makes protein, and it makes use of the water that's available immediately, and it makes seed, and then it dies. And maize in itself is actually seed. Imagine with that gene in the maize plant. It means that even if there is a mid-season drought, when the water comes, it's still going to continue growing and continue producing seed. It's another way of improving food security. It's another way of making sure that the community is having enough at any point in time, regardless of the changes in water supply in the face of climate change. Now, the other issue with food security that you may want to consider looking at is when you look at the crop management itself. So making food from crops requires you to be on the farm 24/7, requires you to apply a lot of chemicals, to also apply a lot of pesticides. So the omics technologies are the tools that have been used over the past maybe 30 years to actually improve crop production, because when you have a plant that is resistant to a pest, it's really a plant that is producing a protein that affects a pest to the extent that the protein detains or prevents the pest to actually feed from the plant. So this is actually a good thing for food security, because our productivity is increased. Same can be done again in the case of post-harvest technologies. These are methods that we use to make sure that the plant that we have is well preserved. People use a lot of, again, these technologies to come up with grain that doesn't easily rot, and to come up with crops that actually last longer.
These are harvested. They harvest the first grade, which is sold outside the country. The second grade is the one that is sold in Woolworth and those big shops. Now these are left for farmers or for sellers to come and pick this, and these ones they sell to the other community members, and those are the usual ones you find on the road. And after, even when those people come, you still see that they leave some. Now these are left to waste, and it is a lot. You can see the numbers on the trees, and you can see here again the volume of trees or of branches cut off, and they are going to the left. You see it all through, So we are turning this waste into products that can be used to preserve maize, And once our maize is preserved, It means we are dealing with food scarcity. It means there's food security. It means we can have maize all through the year that is weevil free. Don't forget that weevils have, even after eating the maize, they are also toxic to human lives, you know. That is when we start talking when we start talking about aflatoxin, you know. So you will find out that this is a waste that we are turning into good products.
You must make sure that you spray every time. You have to spray. There are pests that attack the fruit and can attack your farm, the whole farm. Like bollworm is a problem, when more especially when the trees are still young. And then there's a pest called FCM.
I think the first GM crop that was actually produced was a tomato called the flavor sale. I think some time ago. Most millennials were not born yet. I think that was in 1992. So this protein was designed in such a way that it doesn't rot without refrigeration. So and the rotting process is really a function of an enzyme, a protein. So you kill that protein, you have killed the process. So it means that the shelf life is improved. So if you are going to have a situation where you're going to produce an abundance of tomatoes, and they are a very seasonal crop, and they're also affected by the elements of the weather, meaning that when you do not produce them, you may not have them, but when you produce them, you have in excess of them. However, if you could just produce enough for the whole year and keep them safe, you know, you are promoting food security. You're actually enhancing food security of that household, of that country, of that region. So you use these technologies to actually alter the pathway, the phenology, or the progression of biological processes in the plants. And when you do that, you end up increasing your
My name is Dr. Osu. I'm an agricultural economics. I'm actually interested in alternative use of resources. In this whole work, what we are doing is that we are looking at, when we see all these things falling on the floor, what else can we use it for? So we are actually looking at, apart from the fact that we are looking at the insecticide, anti-insecticide, we are actually looking at what can we use this for. And one of the things we are looking at is that it can serve, study has found that it can serve as alternative to maize in animal feed production. So what we are looking at is that, okay, since it's a waste, and this one doesn't have economic value as to the farmer like this, he cannot sell this, it's a waste to him. So we are looking at, okay, let's analyze this. The nutritive analysis is analyzed, and we are using the small scale technology. They can use this themselves. In fact, this farmer can start to sell it to people. And look, this is it. You don't need to use your maize for your livestock. This has some value for it. So it's either he herself start using it to feed her. Maybe he's going to start another farming to keep livestock, or start selling it to farmers. So we have developed another value chain.
Again, it doesn't stop there. They are a diverse, really, applications that you can actually use these omics to improve food security. We talked about crop production. We talked about even with cattle when it comes to milk production. I mean, back in the days, I think you would just produce maybe a liter or two of milk from a cow, but right now it goes up to 20 to 40 liters, depending on the breeding cow that you have. And again, you guys like a lot of cheese because the country is increasingly becoming cheesy. We want a lot of buttery milk, and again, to do that, and butter in itself is just another metabolite that you want to tweak in the milk production process. And to do that, you need to just change the diet. You need to change the ultimate metabolism that eventually leads to the production of milk. And if it's more buttery, then you're making more cheese, you're making more product that would, satisfy the consumers. So the applications are really endless. It's a matter of really your imagination. And earlier on we talked about quality control. It can also tell you how good your crop is by just looking at the color. You can apply metabolomics to tell this one by the time it gets to say country X, it will be right, good to go for the shelf. And this one, if you keep it for X number, this plant or fruit, if you keep it for this long, it will actually be right.